I stood there, staring at the coffin of my best friend, Todd. The words of the priest floated around me like empty sounds. The grief I was supposed to feel didn't come. Instead, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together, the pieces scattered, waiting to make sense. Todd had been found dead in a hotel room just 2 days ago, alone, with no signs of foul play. The police suspected an overdose, though they couldn't be sure. It was all too clean, too simple. Something didn't sit right with me, but I wasn't in a place to question it yet. Not with everyone watching, the sympathy looks coming from friends and family. I kept my face blank, but inside, I was unraveling. He was my best friend. We'd been through everything together, and yet, his death, felt hollow. As I tried to pull myself together, I felt a soft pressure against my arm. Allison, my wife. She was holding me, offering me the kind of quiet support she always gave when I couldn't put my feelings into words. Her arms wrapped around me, and for a moment, I almost thought I could breathe. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she leaned in close and spoke into my ear. Michael, you need to destroy the flash drive before they find it. The shock hit me like a freight train. I froze. My mind stuttered. What the hell was she talking about? Flash drive? I pulled back slightly to look at her. She didn't seem anxious or worried, but the way she said it felt urgent. What do you mean? I asked, my voice shaking, though I didn't know why. She gave me a small, tight smile, just enough to let me know it wasn't a joke. Then she pulled away, as if she hadn't just dropped a bombshell in the middle of my already fractured world. She didn't say anything more, and I didn't push it. But I couldn't let it go. I didn't understand. Todd had talked about something before his death. Some kind of data, information he said would change everything. Was that the same thing Allison was referring to? But why was she involved? The whole thing was too strange. Too many unanswered questions. My thoughts raced as I tried to focus on the ceremony, to pretend I could feel the normal sadness of losing a friend, but all I could hear in my head were Allison's words. The funeral passed in a blur. We returned home, and Allison went about her usual routine, though I noticed a certain tension in her. Her movements were more deliberate, more calculated, and it made me uneasy. She hadn't mentioned the flash drive again, and neither had I. But the silence between us was thick, like a wall I couldn't climb. I tried to sleep that night, but my mind wouldn't quiet. Todd's voice echoed in my head, talking about the data, the information that could change everything. And now, Allison, with her cryptic warning. I needed answers. And I was going to get them. In the middle of the night, after Allison had gone to bed, I couldn't stop myself anymore. I had to find that flash drive. I crept through our apartment, feeling like an intruder in my own home. It wasn't long before I found it, buried deep in a drawer in the study. The small, unassuming piece of technology seemed harmless, but I knew it wasn't. I plugged it into my computer, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the file. It was a video. I clicked play, and the screen flickered to life. There, on the screen, were Todd and Allison. In bed. I froze. The room felt like it was closing in on me. But then Todd's voice cut through the silence, the video recording from a hidden camera, and I could barely breathe as I heard his words. Yes, I have everything. If she finds out, there will be hell to pay. But I know how to make the best of it. My blood ran cold. Who was he talking to? What the hell was going on? I wasn't sure if the truth would set me free, or if it would shatter everything I thought I knew about the people I loved. But I didn't have time to process. I had to understand. I had to know what was going on before I lost control completely. And Allison, my wife, had just turned into someone I didn't recognize. I sat there, the screen flickering in front of me, and wondered what the hell I was supposed to do next. The shock wasn't over. Not even close. I couldn't sleep that night. The words from the video replayed in my head, echoing like a drumbeat, over and over. Todd's voice was unmistakable, the calm, confident tone he always had when he was in control. But now, it felt like a betrayal. My best friend, my confidant, was talking about Allison like she was some kind of target. I ran my hand through my hair, my mind racing. What the hell did he mean by, if she finds out, there will be hell to pay? And why was he speaking to someone in secret about her? My thoughts kept spiraling, each theory more confusing than the last, until I finally knew what I had to do. I needed answers, and there was only one way to get them. I needed to find out more about that flash drive and about Allison. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. Allison didn't act any differently, at least not on the surface. She made breakfast as usual, humming a soft tune under her breath. I could feel her eyes on me more than once, but she didn't ask what was bothering me, and I didn't mention the video. Not yet. I couldn't. The thought of confronting her, of asking her about Todd, the flash drive, and all the questions that now seemed to be growing like weeds in my brain, was unbearable. But deep down, I knew I couldn't keep this hidden forever. So, I spent the rest of the day carefully, cautiously, watching her. I had to know. By the time evening came, I found myself unable to resist anymore. I had to search. I told myself I wasn't going to do anything drastic, that I was just looking for some kind of explanation. So, I went through her things. Every drawer. Every closet. I wasn't proud of it, but I had to know what she was hiding. It wasn't long before I found something. A small, unmarked envelope tucked away in the back of her desk drawer. I tore it open, and inside was another flash drive, identical to the one I had already seen. My breath caught in my throat. Why did she have this? What did she know that I didn't? My hands were shaking as I plugged the drive into my computer. I was already regretting my decision to go down this path, but it was too late to turn back now. The file opened, revealing another video. This one was different, though. It was a recording of Allison, talking to someone. The conversation wasn't as clear as the one I had heard with Todd, but there was no mistaking the urgency in her voice. We didn't think Todd would go this far. He was unstable. But your husband, he can't know that this was a contract. A contract? I felt a cold chill crawl down my spine. Who was she talking to? What was she involved in? And why the hell was my name even being mentioned? I sat back in my chair, stunned. The implications were too much to process all at once. My wife, my Allison, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was talking about Todd in a way that didn't fit with the image I had of him. She was speaking like she knew something far deeper, something far more dangerous than I ever could have imagined. What was this contract she referred to? Was she in danger? Was I? It was then that I realized I had been too passive. I had been too careful. It wasn't just about Todd anymore. It wasn't just about her relationship with him, or the hidden camera. Something much bigger was going on, and I was standing right in the middle of it, clueless. My mind raced, but I couldn't piece everything together. All I knew for sure was that Allison was hiding something, and whatever it was serious. I thought about confronting her. I thought about demanding answers. But I hesitated. The video, the words in it, kept spinning in my head. She was keeping secrets. Todd was keeping secrets. And now I felt like I was being drawn into something that I wasn't prepared for. That wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing that I wasn't just worried about what Allison had done, or what Todd had done. I was afraid of what they both might be doing to me, of what I might become if I kept following this trail. That night, after Allison went to bed, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had learned. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled in a mess of confusion and dread. The worst part wasn't even the secrets I had uncovered. It was the fact that everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. My life, my relationships, everything I thought I knew was falling apart. I had no idea how deep this went, or how much danger I was really in. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I had to get to the bottom of this. I had to find out what Allison was involved in, even if it meant risking everything. But little did I know, this was only the beginning. What I'd already discovered was nothing compared to the truth that was still waiting for me. The days that followed felt like a blur. I went through the motions of life, going to work, pretending everything was fine at home, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Allison was different. I could feel it, even if she wasn't saying anything. She'd become more distant, and when she did speak, her words had a strange edge to them, like she was trying to conceal something. I couldn't figure out what it was, but my suspicions grew stronger with each passing day. She had always been open with me, transparent in a way that made me believe I knew her better than anyone. But now, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I had to keep digging, even if I didn't know what I was really hoping to find. That night, after dinner, I saw her act strangely again. She disappeared into the study, and when I went to check on her, I found her sitting at her desk, typing away on her laptop. What caught my attention wasn't just her strange behavior, it was the VPN connection she had activated. I knew Allison well enough to know she didn't need a VPN for anything related to work. She had no reason to hide her online activities from me. And yet, there she was, obscuring her connection as if she had something to hide. My heart raced as I quietly stepped back and waited. She didn't know I was watching, and I felt like I was intruding on something I wasn't meant to see. She closed the laptop after a few minutes and quickly left the room, almost as if she had been trying to get away before I could catch her. I didn't follow her right away. I needed to be smart about this. She had gone out before, late at night, and I hadn't thought much of it. But now, everything felt different. Now, I had to follow her. It wasn't hard to track her. She had always been predictable in her habits, and tonight was no different. I followed her from a distance, keeping far enough behind that she wouldn't notice me. She took a route I knew well, heading toward a part of town where the streets were quieter, more isolated. My pulse quickened as I wondered where she was going, what she was up to. She stopped in front of a nondescript building, the kind of place that didn't draw attention. She looked around, as if checking to see if anyone was watching, before she entered. I stood across the street for a long time, trying to figure out what to do. My instincts told me to leave, to walk away before things got worse. But I couldn't. I had to know. I waited until she came out about an hour later. This time, though, she wasn't alone. A woman was with her, tall, dressed in dark clothes, and exuding an aura of authority. The woman spoke in hushed tones, too low for me to hear, but I caught the name she addressed: Allison by Agent Gray. The name struck me like a slap in the face. I had heard that name before, mentioned in passing during some of Todd's more cryptic conversations, but I had never connected the dots. I watched, barely breathing, as the two of them spoke for several minutes. Then Allison turned and walked away with the woman, disappearing down a side street. I stood frozen for a moment, the weight of what I had just witnessed crashing down on me. My wife, was she some kind of agent? What did Agent Gray mean? The questions were overwhelming, but the one that stood out the most was, why had she kept this from me? I had to know more. The next day, I took a different approach. I waited until she was gone for the day, then went back to the study, the place where I had found the first flash drive. There, under some old files, I found something that made my stomach drop. A set of keys to a storage unit, tucked inside a plain envelope. No return address, nothing that could give away who it was from. Just the keys. My heart skipped a beat. What was she hiding? What was so important that it needed to be kept locked away in some anonymous storage unit? I didn't waste any more time. I grabbed the keys and made my way to the storage facility, the knot in my stomach tightening with every step. The place was out of the way, tucked behind a strip mall in a part of town I didn't visit often. When I reached the unit, I hesitated for just a second, wondering if I was about to cross a line I couldn't come back from. But then I shook it off. I needed the truth. I had to know. The unit was dark, the air stale, but when I stepped inside, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. There, in the corner, was a large, unmarked box. It was locked, but it didn't take long for me to force it open. Inside, I found a collection of equipment I couldn't begin to understand, a mass of surveillance devices, cameras, recorders, and stacks of paperwork that looked too official to be just random notes. There were several passports, all in different names, some I didn't recognize. But what struck me the most was one of them, Allison's passport. The name was different. It was a name I had never heard before, Hannah Baines. My knees went weak. I sat down hard on the floor, the weight of everything I had uncovered crashing into me all at once. My wife, Allison, wasn't who I thought she was. She had been living under a false identity. And worse, she had been hiding it from me for God knows how long. The truth was a knife in my chest, and I had no idea where it would lead. But I couldn't stop now. I needed to find out more. Everything about my life, everything I thought I knew, had just unraveled, and the more I looked, the deeper I was sinking into a world I didn't understand. It was hard to explain the feeling that overtook me as I sat there, staring at the passport, the evidence of everything I had never known about Allison. Hannah Baines. The name felt like a cold slap to my face, an unfamiliar label slapped onto someone I thought I had known better than anyone. I held the passport in my shaking hands, the weight of what I had just uncovered pressing down on me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Allison had built a life with me under an alias, a false identity. And if that wasn't enough, the other items in the storage unit told an even more disturbing story. Surveillance equipment, recorders, passports with multiple identities. She wasn't just hiding one part of herself, she was hiding a whole life. A life I had never suspected. I wanted to scream, to throw everything in my hands and run, but I couldn't. I needed to understand. I needed to know how deep this went, what kind of person I had been living with for all these years. I spent hours in that unit, combing through every item, every document, trying to piece together a picture of Allison's past, of Hannah's past. The more I discovered, the more I realized just how little I truly knew about her. The passports, the false names, they weren't just for travel or convenience. They were part of a carefully constructed, deeply hidden life. She wasn't just a music teacher, a wife, a partner. She had been living a completely different existence, one built on deception and secrecy. And Todd had been involved. He had been part of this shadowy world. The thought of it made my skin crawl. My best friend, the man I had known for years, was part of this hidden world, and now he was dead. The video had hinted at something dark, something dangerous, but I hadn't known how truly dangerous until now. I sat there, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I was learning. Everything I thought I understood about my life, my relationship with Allison, was built on lies. But there was still so much I didn't know. What was her role in all of this? What had Todd meant by contract? And how did this all connect to my family? My head spun with the unanswered questions, and my heart raced as I began to make connections that had never even crossed my mind before. The more I thought about Allison, the more I realized how much she had hidden. She wasn't just pretending to be someone else. She had built a network around herself, a life that existed outside the boundaries of the world I had known. The secret room in the storage unit was proof of that. There were files, official-looking documents that I had no way of understanding, but they were clearly important. Names of people I didn't recognize, along with cryptic messages and coded language. What had she been involved in? And why hadn't she ever told me? Was I just another piece in a much larger puzzle? The realization hit me with force. Allison wasn't just my wife. She had been living a double life, one that I had no idea about, and Todd had been a part of it. I thought about the conversation I had heard on the flash drive, Todd's words ringing in my ears. If she finds out, there will be hell to pay. It was clear now. Whatever they had been involved in was far more complicated and far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. But then, just when I thought I had started to piece everything together, something else dawned on me. Todd's death. It wasn't just a random overdose. It couldn't have been. There were too many things that didn't add up. He had known too much. He had been part of something big, something that could ruin a lot of people. And now he was dead. The authorities thought it was an accident, but I knew better. They were covering something up, just like Allison had been hiding the truth from me for years. I spent the next few days and a days trying to make sense of everything, but the more I uncovered, the more questions I had. My life, my marriage, had been built on a foundation of lies, and I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. I had been living in the dark, and now that the light had been cast on the truth, I realized just how deep I was in. I couldn't go to the police, not yet. If Allison had been living a life of deception, what would they do to me if they found out I was involved? Was I a part of this mess too? I wasn't sure anymore. Then, as if everything hadn't already been enough to process, I made a decision. I had to take the flash drive to the police. It was the only way I could get the answers I was looking for. It was the only way to get to the truth. So, I went to the station, walked through those doors, and handed over the evidence that could bring everything to light. I had no idea what would happen next, but I had reached the point of no return. I needed the truth, and this was the only way to get it. But when the police officer at the desk looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read and told me, "This material has already been shown to us," my heart sank. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Your name is on the witness list. Allison turned you in as an accomplice. She's on the run." I didn't know what to think. My wife, Allison, had turned me in? The shock made my legs feel weak, and for a moment, I thought I might collapse right there. I left the station in a daze, my mind spinning with the impossible turn of events. When I got home, I found the place empty. Her things were gone, clothes, toiletries, everything. There was only a note on the table. I opened it with trembling hands. "I protected you as best I could. But now, either disappear, or they will take you away. I'm sorry." I stared at the note, unable to comprehend what was happening. My wife, the woman I loved, was gone, and everything I thought I knew about my life had been ripped apart in an instant. I stood there for a long time, staring at the note, trying to make sense of it all. But the only thing I knew for sure was that the truth was far darker than I could have ever imagined. And now, I was alone, caught in the middle of a world I didn't understand, with no one left to trust. I spent the next few hours sitting in the apartment, the weight of everything pressing down on me until I couldn't breathe. Allison's absence felt like an unbearable emptiness. Her things were gone, but her presence still lingered in every corner of the apartment. I couldn't understand what had happened. One moment, she had been my wife, the woman I had built my life with, and the next, she had vanished, leaving nothing behind but a cryptic note and a shattered version of everything I thought I knew. It felt like I was living in someone else's life, a twisted version of reality where nothing made sense. I didn't know who had turned on me or why, but I knew one thing for sure. I had no choice but to get out. The police, Allison, The unknown dangers, they were all too much. I had to disappear, even if it meant leaving behind everything I had ever known. I grabbed a bag, hastily throwing in a few clothes, my wallet, and a passport I found tucked away in a drawer, one of the many false identities Allison had hidden from me. It was a stark reminder of the lies that had built our life together. But it was also my ticket out, a means of escape from the whirlwind that had overtaken my world. I had no idea where I was going, only that I had to leave before it was too late. There was no telling who was after me now, or if the police would follow up on Allison's betrayal and come knocking on my door. I walked out of the apartment, unsure of what the future held, but certain that I had no choice but to leave. My mind was still racing, still trying to piece together the puzzle of Allison's double life, Todd's involvement, and the twisted web of lies that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. I couldn't stop thinking about the flash drive, the one that had started all of this. What had it revealed? What had Allison known? And who was the true mastermind behind all of this? I still didn't know the answers, and now I wasn't sure I ever would. But there was one last thread I had to pull before I left. I had to know the truth about Todd. I found a bench in a nearby park, and I sat there, staring at the empty street in front of me. The weight of the decisions ahead felt heavy, suffocating even. As I sat there, time seemed to stretch on forever, the minutes feeling like hours. I wasn't sure how long I had been waiting when I saw her, Allison. She appeared from the crowd, walking toward me, her face unreadable. The moment I saw her, something inside me twisted. She looked different. She wasn't the same woman I had married. There was a coldness in her eyes, a hardness that hadn't been there before. She had changed, and so had I. I had been pulled into a world of secrets, of deception, and now it seemed like it was too late to escape. She sat down beside me, her movements slow and deliberate. We didn't say anything at first, just sat there, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. The weight of the moment felt almost unbearable, and yet, I knew we didn't have much time. Allison's eyes flicked around nervously, as if she was waiting for something, someone, to appear. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. Did you betray me? I asked, my voice tight, barely able to mask the hurt that twisted in my chest. I wasn't sure what answer I was expecting, but I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. I needed to hear the truth from her lips. Allison hesitated, and for a moment, I thought she might lie to me again. But then she spoke, her voice low and measured. No, Michael. I didn't betray you. I used you. But in time, I came to love you. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I couldn't reconcile them. She had used me, but she loved me? It didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. But before I could respond, she pulled something from her pocket, another flash drive. She placed it in my hand, and for a brief moment, I thought my heart might stop. What's on this one? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. I didn't know if I was ready for the answer, but I had to hear it. I had to know. The real traitor, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not me, and it's not you. My hand trembled as I held the flash drive, but I didn't want to know what it contained. I had seen too much already. The truth about Allison, the lies, the secrets, everything had been turned upside down. I didn't know if I could bear any more of it, but I knew I had no choice. I had already crossed too many lines. I couldn't walk away now. With a sigh, she looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mixture of sorrow and resignation. I was trying to protect you, Michael. I didn't want you to get involved in this. But I couldn't stop it from happening. Now, it's too late. I was about to ask her what she meant, to demand more answers, but then I heard something footsteps, distant but growing closer. Allison's face tightened, and she stood up quickly. We only have 7 minutes until they track the place, she said urgently, her voice strained. I'm giving you a choice now. Either you forget everything and live, or we both disappear. Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. There was no escape. This wasn't just about Todd anymore. It was about everything. About her. About me. About a world I had never even known existed. One that was closing in on us with a deadly precision. I don't have a choice, do I? I asked, the bitterness in my voice seeping through despite myself. No, she said quietly. You do have a choice, but not much of one. The people we're dealing with don't leave room for choices. I looked at her, my mind racing, trying to make sense of everything. The flash drive in my hand felt like a weight that could crush me. It was the key to everything, the key to understanding the truth, to understanding who was behind everything. But it was also the key to our destruction. What's on the drive? I asked, the words leaving my mouth before I even realized I had said them. The real traitor, she repeated, her voice tight with tension. You'll know him when you see him, but it's not who you think. I didn't know if I wanted to know anymore. I didn't know if I was ready for the truth, for the final, crushing revelation that would tear everything apart. But Allison had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The clock was ticking, and there was no more time for questions. I looked at her one last time, and in that moment, I understood. This was the end of everything I had known. The flash drive was the beginning of a new world, one that would pull me deeper into the shadows. The choice was mine, to walk away and forget everything, or to follow the truth wherever it led, even if it meant disappearing forever. And I had no idea which path I would choose. But I knew one thing for sure: my life would never be the same again.